Today, is Labour's housing policy any better? Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, for this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Last Tuesday, I had an interesting discussion with the New Liberals' Steve Keen and Victor Klein. And one of the issues we discussed in some detail is housing policy. And their thesis is that really both sides, both the current incumbents and the main opposition parties, are pretty much dancing from the same hymn sheet when it comes to housing policy. So it's interesting to see that, quote, creative financing and ownership model solutions are needed to help more Australians afford homes, according to the Shadow Assistant Treasurer and Shadow Minister for Financial Services and Superannuation, Stephen Jones MP. And he outlined that more tailored and sophisticated solutions were needed to help improve housing affordability in Australia. While the Morrison government is currently undergoing an inquiry into housing affordability in Australia, given that a federal election is expected to be held in May, the Labor Minister was asked what the Australian Labor Party's stance was on the role that the family home and housing had in the financial system. In response, the member for Whitlam outlined that while retiring Australians should be able to live off the value of the equity of their homes and be facilitated to achieve that, they should not be mandated to do so. However, he added that much more is needed to be done on making more homes affordable to more people, suggesting that the Labor Party believed a multi-pronged approach was necessary to reduce the barriers to home ownership. Mr. Jones elaborated, I want to see the next generation of Australians who are in their 20s and 30s to be able to find a home that they are able to live in, or a home that they're able to live in within an hour of the CBD. It's beyond trite to say it. The housing affordability problem is a supply issue. It is in part a supply issue. It's also an ownership model issue. It's also about removing obstacles to downsizing. It's a whole bunch of things that need to be looked at. And I've been working closely with my colleague Jason Clare, who's the Shadow Minister for Regional Services, Territories and Local Government, and Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness on it. So I think if you're looking at it from a put a roof over every Australian's head frame, which is what Labor does, bespoke solutions are needed for people in different demographics, in different points of their life. There are Australians who will never be able to own a home, and we need to ensure that they still have a roof over their head and secure a roof over their head. There are Australians who, under the existing arrangements or the existing financing arrangements, will never be able to buy a home. We need to provide some creative financing ownership solutions and ownership model solutions for them so they can get a start in the housing market. And then there are Australians who would be reluctant to move from their existing home to one that was more appropriate for them. Some of the solutions are levers at a federal level, and some of them aren't. I think we had so many snappy answers to the housing space, whether it's Rage or Super or this or that, but when you look at it deeply, you need different solutions for different demographics. Indeed, the Shadow Assistant Treasurer was critical of the notion of using superannuation savings for housing deposits, which has been pushed by various Liberal politicians in the recent past, including MP Tim Wilson and Senator Andrew Bragg, who have touted the idea as a solution for first home buyers struggling to enter the property market. The Morrison government also introduced the First Home Super Saver Scheme, the FHSSS, in 2017 to enable prospective first home buyers to save for a deposit inside their superannuation and then withdraw their voluntary contributions along with associated earnings to help them purchase their first home. The COVID-19 Early Release Superannuation Scheme, which allowed up to $20,000 to be accessed before retirement to people facing financial hardship due to the pandemic, also saw more than a quarter of released funds used for mortgage repayments in 2020. The member for Whitlam suggested the current government was expecting superannuation to provide so much ballast and support to a range of issues. He explained, "We are battling the pandemic, and at the same time there was a war going on superannuation at every level of the three pillars of superannuation: the inputs through the superannuation guarantee levy, the preservation rules. Superannuation was being called upon to answer everything from smallpox to university debt, and there are some really wacky, crazy ideas." What was different this time around, though, is that they were seriously being considered at the highest levels of government. In the past, we've had treasuries of all sides whack them away and point out the nuts of some of the propositions, whether it is superannuation for housing, super for domestic violence, or super for this or super for that. We've had treasurers say, "No, this is just crazy. Think about it for 10 seconds and you will see just how nutso it really is." This time around, it was seriously being considered. Fact. The war on superannuation as an institution and those who are responsible for the governance of it, we didn't need it. It actually detracted from some serious policy debates that we needed to have around all of these things, around inputs, around governance, around capital deployment, at a time when we should have been having serious debates about that. The whole bandwidth was being directed around the existence of the system as a whole. For somebody who's deeply fascinated and engaged and passionate about the sector as a whole, I've been incredibly disappointed, because I think there were lost opportunities and a bunch of things that we could have done that would have made the recovery stronger and the duration of the economic impact a lot shorter. And later in the event, the Shadow Minister of Financial Services and Superannuation also told mortgage business sister brand, The Advisor, that the Australian Labor Party had no intentions of changing the current broker remuneration structure, adding that Commissioner Kenneth Hayne probably wasn't right on his recommendation to move to a consumer pays model. Now, the point I want to make is that what was said there was probably all well and good, but frankly, doesn't tell me anything. And the more I listen to both sides of politics on housing, it seems to be that neither of them want to tackle the fundamental structural issue that we face, which is that too much debt is required to drive housing. Too much debt means too big a mortgages. And of course, in a rising interest rate environment, which is now what we're starting to see, this will have a very significant dampening effect on the broader economy. Unfortunately, there are really no new ideas from either of the main parties, which is why my belief is that we have to look elsewhere for some constructive alternatives as to how to tackle the housing conundrum. Now, if you're buying your home in Sydney's contentious market, you don't need to stand alone. This is the time you need to have Edwin Almeida from Ribbon Property Consultants standing alongside you. Buying a property is both challenging and adversarial. The vendor has a professional on their side. Emotions run high, price discovery and price transparency are hard to find, and then there's the wasted time and financial investments that you make. Edwin understands your needs, so why not engage a licensed professional to stand alongside you? With RPC, you know you have experience, knowledge, and master negotiators looking after your best interests. So shoot Ribbon an email at info@ribbonproperty.com.au, and if you use the promo code DFAWTW/Martin, you can get a 10% discount offer. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.